Welcome back to my podcast, listeners. We're on episode 81, and today I'll tell you the story of how I lost my virginity at age 20. My desperation to be married did not just stem from my romantic fantasies or my wish to have someone to be intimate with. My mom's domineering temperament was sometimes unbearable for me to tolerate. I once read some of my old diaries from when I was in high school, so around the ages of 12, 13, or 14. The Dear Diary types where you journal, and I was shocked by how sad I had been. I wouldn't be surprised if a professional had diagnosed it as depression. And in my case, that would be situational depression because sadness stemmed from how I was treated by those around me and how I couldn't live up to their expectations. That horrible feeling of being trapped when you desperately want to escape, it is a suffocating feeling. One day during this time, my mom had scolded me so much, and I was feeling so crushed. I had gone into the bathroom to cry quietly. This was something I had resorted to doing, since there was no privacy to be had in our home. And in those depths of despair, I had looked at the bottles of chemical cleaners, wondering if I should just swallow them and end it all. That is how my mother or my circumstances affected me. That was a few seconds that I looked at those bottles and thought about it, but it was telling enough about how much she hurt my feelings. Other than the time when mum wouldn't let me stand for a while after I had just come back home from the Navratri dancing and insisted that I get into bed, she had other issues. I'm not sure if she did these things to be controlling or just because she had some psychological problems. She kept insisting that it was some compulsions and this was beyond her control and she couldn't help how she felt. But this was taking its toll on us and on her parenting. I tried to get her counseling a couple of times, but that did not work out. And she came away with nothing. So once this is what she did. I had started teaching tuitions to little children. And once I had enough money from these tuitions, I decided one day to go to Fashion Street and buy myself some new clothes. Clothes of my choice. Clothes that were more in trend with the times and my taste. Now that I had lost weight and had this stunning figure, I wanted some frocks and skirts. I had also gotten my waxing done, so no body hair. I went to Fashion Street by myself and bought some pretty clothes. I was delighted. I went home with my haul, and my mom got super pissed when she saw that I had bought some clothes. The tension in the house was palpable. Mom was fuming, throwing a fit. She was yelling and screaming. I think she was trying to hit me. I got so scared. Dad got so angry that he told Mom that he would burn all these clothes right now and be done with it. Dad had earlier torn a champak that I had been reading and flung it out of the window. So I completely believed that he was indeed capable of burning my brand new clothes that I had just bought with money that I had earned myself. I was allowed to keep those clothes after that intensely stressful evening. But such incidents created a pattern for all the years to follow. Till today, when I enter a store and start buying clothes, I feel insane anxiety. I feel palpitations, like something is going to go very wrong. And on some shopping trips, I buy compulsively and excessively, all the while feeling intense anxiety. It was after this shopping trip and the clothes that I bought of my choice that the Sophia girls had told me that my taste was improving. So, with the home life being so unbearable, I was just waiting for some release, some escape. And for me, that release was the idea of getting married and not being in this house or this family anymore. I loved the house itself. On the fourth floor, we had a view of the little wood that looked absolutely stunning, especially in the rainy season. I loved living in Hillside. I loved the entire Godrej complex, the schools. All of those things were amazing. But the person who made life feel unbearable from time to time was mom. She could be very loving and supportive, like the time I had been too anxious to appear for my master's stats paper, and she had taken me through it gently until I felt comfortable enough to go and appear for my exam. But at other times, she had these mental meltdown episodes when she got very aggressive with us. In addition to the outbursts, she could be consistently very stern and strict and controlling at regular times too. We had these chores that we absolutely had to do, and that included cooking roti sabzi for dinner and also serving food. At one time, mom had tried to prevent me from going downstairs during the evenings, saying I was no longer a little child, so didn't need to play. But she went for her evening walks very regularly, saying she couldn't imagine even a single day without stepping out of the house in the evening. During summer vacations, mom strictly monitored our time, making us do embroidery for our wedding trousseau, guard the achars drying on the terrace, or cooking with her. The only time we had to ourselves was the afternoons, and that is when I was allowed to read books. But we didn't always get new books to read and had to sometimes make do with repeat reading books that we'd already read before. The worst was to hear mom constantly grumble that we did nothing to help her around the house at all. Dad was absolutely useless in handling mom at such times. He had no idea what to do. He was unable to protect himself from her tirades, so he wasn't in a position to protect us either, I guess. But also, when she started yelling at us, he would join in, increasing the stress we felt. I would feel so suffocated and disgusted when mom behaved like this. I just wanted to get away from her. And so I had gathered my guts and told mom that I wanted to get married. But mom had ridiculed me for that and said that I should focus on my studies. When I'd met Grover as a 19-year-old, my first boyfriend, I actually thought we would make a life together. But after that disastrous breakup, things looked bleak. It was around this time that Farzad started talking to me. The year was 1994. Farzad was what my dad called Kala Parsi. You see, the Parsis, being from Persia, were very light-skinned compared to the average Indian. Both of Farzad's parents were light-skinned too, with sharp features. But Farzad was dark as the night. Farzad's face was like that of a misshapen potato, and he had blunt, round features. His eyes were reddish and unclear and seemed to melt downward, droopy, in a most unattractive way. In fact, his entire face was like that, like Salvador Dali's painting of the melting clocks. So the rumor was that he was born from an affair. Nobody knew the facts, of course, so I have no idea what the actual background was. From the time we were in high school, Farzad had this girlfriend Monaz. Monaz was pretty and pleasantly plump, but he had broken up with her and he was single now. Farzad had this huge Doberman called Zorba. One morning, Zorba bit me. I had been on the hillside ground early in the morning trying timidly to jog. I was trying to work on my fitness. I did not have or know the appropriate clothes for workouts then, so I was wearing denims for my jog. Farzad was in the habit of just letting Zorba out in the morning unsupervised and going back to sleep. As I took my first few steps to jog, Zorba leapt up at me and grabbed my calf in his mouth. The only reason that bite did not penetrate my skin was the fact that I was wearing denims. I was terrified and furious. Who leaves their aggressive dog unsupervised like that? But since I had read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, I decided to speak to Farzad in a friendly and calm manner. I stepped out in the evening and approached Farzad, who had been sitting with a bunch of guys. I tried to speak as kindly as I could, telling him what happened and asking him to be careful with his dog. I spoke in a friendly manner with a smile. I don't think he actually cared. But then Farzad started joining me for my evening walks. I usually stepped out alone and Farzad would be sitting with the guys. He would see me and join me on my walks. We didn't really have anything in common, so the conversation would be awkward at best. As we walked around the boys' side buildings, one auntie who knew my mom stared hard at us. I joked about how a guy and girl couldn't just take a walk without people making assumptions. There was a little quarry hill that I used to climb in the evening to get exercise and to look at the sunset. Sometimes our entire family climbed it together and sat on a rock looking at the setting sun and at the twinkling lights of the Vikhroli station. These were the best times when we were all together and peaceful and happy. We cherished these times. One day, Farzad climbed the quarry hill with me. When we were at the top, he lifted my top and opened my bra. I let him. I had thought he was interested in becoming my boyfriend now that he was single. I was beginning to get infatuated. I was falling for Farzad. It was awkward standing there on the hill with nothing to lean on, no chair to sit on, no bed to lay on, just standing out there. I thought he was going to suckle, so I threw my head back and closed my eyes. I waited and nothing happened. I peeked, opened my eyes a little and peeked. He spent some time just looking at my chest. Meanwhile, I felt some mosquitoes land on my legs. I had just waxed the previous day and was wearing a knee-length frock. I did not want to spoil the moment for Farzad or for us, so I did not move. As the mosquitoes realized that I was not shooing them away, not budging, more and more of them swarmed on my calves. I could feel the stings, I could feel the itching, but I just stood still. There must have been hundreds, yet I stood unmoving, tolerating the stings, just so that I wouldn't spoil the moment for Farzad. Farzad and the mosquitoes had a field day that evening. Me, not so much. Whatever Farzad did to my breasts felt like nothing at best. He did not know what he was doing. It was unpleasant. I knew what it could or should feel like because I'd experienced it. I also knew what it should not feel like because I'd experienced that also. Nevertheless, I looked forward to being Farzad's girlfriend and then his wife. I just wanted a husband. When I got home that evening, Ruby was shocked to see my legs. They were so badly inflamed, red and full of bumps. When I looked at my legs, I wondered how many other insects had joined the mosquitoes for this party on my legs. It was weeks before they looked normal again. It was brutal. Farzad told me that he had a friend whose parents owned an apartment somewhere in South Bombay and he would be able to get the keys for us. He asked me which day I would be able to join him for this rendezvous. We had learned in psychology class about the rhythm method for avoiding pregnancy. So I thought about that. Also, Farzad's birthday was coming up. So I thought we could plan the little getaway on his birthday. And I told him the date. We kept doing our evening walks after that. One evening, Farzad told me how disappointed he was that I hadn't wished him on his birthday. I was surprised and embarrassed. Had I misheard his birthday? I apologized, wished him, and told him that I had thought it was a couple of days later, and that is why I had planned our meetup for that day, like his special day. Once again, my hearing or attention or memory, one of those had let me down. I was not sure which one. On the appointed day, I left home for university. But instead of uni, I went with Farzad. He had a motorcycle and I was waiting at the bus stop outside the Godrej gate. So I sat on the motorcycle gingerly because I was not really comfortable on motorbikes. I had taken extra care dressing up for the special day. It would be the first day Farzad and I would have privacy from prying eyes. Away from mosquitoes, hopefully. The morning traffic and fumes and dust got into my eyes and my eyes stung. It was about an hour we were on the bike and throughout, my eyes kept getting little particles inside. Finally, we reached and the guy was waiting with the key. He let us in, spent some time there, and left. I went to wash my hands and noticed in the mirror that my eyes were full of white eye mucus that had collected on the inner corners of my eyes, presumably from the ton of dirt that had gotten into my eyes on the way here. I was so embarrassed that I was here to get romantic with this boy that I liked, and my eyes were full of gunk. Feeling my embarrassment acutely at having been seen like that by both guys, I quickly washed my eyes. We laid on the mattress on the floor, and Farzad started doing something. I guess this was supposed to be foreplay, but it did not feel good. I don't know if he did this for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. It was feeling so unpleasant that I wanted to get it over with. So I told him, "Go ahead, do it." I was not even aroused, not even miles away from arousal. He just had no skill in the bedroom. And now I found myself with Farzad in this apartment, and I thought the sooner we could be done, the sooner I could stop having to tolerate this thing he was doing that was supposed to be foreplay. Since my vagina was still very much sealed shut, it was not easy to do the deed. When he finally managed to get in, the searing pain was so intense, I thought it was the pain of death. Each millisecond of that pain seemed unbearable. It took everything in me to just tolerate this pain and let him do his thing. It hurt from the beginning to the end. Finally, he was done. I did not bleed at all. I don't know why. I wonder if the guy even knew that I had been a virgin till that point. I thought we could leave now, but also the very act triggered some feelings in me. I started to feel more loving towards Farzad. My hormones were responding to the act. When I looked into the mirror again, my eye corners were again full of gunk. What the heck? This had never happened before and never happened again. This was so embarrassing. Had I had this in my eyes the whole while we were getting intimate? I felt so much shame. Once again, I quickly cleaned my eyes. I guess the road was really very polluted and most of the dust seemed to have found its way into my eyes. The friend whose apartment it was brought biryani in the afternoon. Oh, I thought we were leaving. But Farzad said we could go a second time. I was least interested in eating now. Oh no, I thought. I wanted to leave, or at least not have to do that again so soon. I had just had a landmark moment. It was a huge deal for me. It's not something where I could just be doing it again and again. Hello? Farzad told me that the friend felt he was entitled to have a go at me because it was his apartment. Seeing the alarm on my face, he said it was a joke, or that he said no, I can't remember which. But now that I look back on it, I realize he was serious and he was testing the waters. I resigned myself to letting Farzad do his thing a second time. I had just lost my virginity today, and considering how painful it was, I was hoping not to do it again so soon, at least some gap in between. But I felt like I did not have a way out of the second session, and so I let him. Once it was done and I sat on the motorbike to go home, I felt different. I felt like I had joined a league that I had been excluded from before. Never mind how horrible it had felt in the moment. The next day, as I climbed the stairs of university with my two married classmates, Dilshad and Ranjita, I excitedly gushed, "I did it! I did it!" and started spilling the details to them. Dilshad looked shocked and diverted the conversation, pretending we were talking about something else. I got confused. Then she told me not to just start blurting things like that. I was a little deflated. I thought they would be happy to hear about this new development in my life. That evening, I went to the ground as usual. I saw Farzad on the stairs of the clubhouse. My heart soared. I happily went and joined him. I sat next to him. All day my heart had been abuzz, and I'd found myself feeling more and more deeply loving feeling towards him. I was so happy to see him. I wanted to link my arm through his and put my head on his shoulder, but I just sat next to him primly. But the energy had changed. Farzad was cold and distant. He looked ahead and was indifferent to me. I felt hurt, realizing he was in the process of discarding me, having used me. I got up and walked away quietly. Later, Ruby asked me why I spent time with that Farzad auntia. To find a husband, I told her. She gave me this withering look, like, not this guy, surely. Well, even someone as unworthy as this guy had discarded me like a used tissue. Farzad did not attempt to approach me or talk to me again. Except once, in 2001. 7 years had passed since Farzad had made me feel like a use and throw piece of garbage. I could not even believe the stupidity of some men. After the way he had treated me, Farzad actually had the gall to talk to me again, that too so glibly. Talk about clueless. By this time, I was married and had a baby. Farzad was married too, to Mona's. I had taken a bus to come visit Ruby, who now lived in Hillside with her husband and baby. I had gotten down outside the Hillside gate from the bus and carried my sleeping baby towards the Soaps buildings. They are the farthest away from the gate, and the sleeping baby was very heavy to carry. I was trudging along. I noticed a car driving alongside me as I walked. I turned around to see that it was Farzad. Grinning from ear to ear, he suggested we get naughty again. Just like that. No, how are you? How has life been treating you? No apology for his jerk behavior right after I had given him my virginity. I was amazed at the audacity and stupidity. I smiled patiently and said, why don't we focus on our spouses, shall we? Then I turned around and walked away, feeling the hurt all over again. Just because I was humble and polite and he had fooled me once didn't mean I was going to walk right into his trap again. What an idiot. Years later, Facebook was launched in India and I sent a friend request to Mona's along with many of the other Godrej people. Mona's did not accept my friend request. When I saw that Mona's was not accepting my friend request, it was only then that it occurred to me that she was offended. But did she know the facts? Did she think this had happened when they were still seeing each other? I knew for a fact they were broken up then, and I had no way of knowing that they would get back together. Did she know that I had been deceived, used and discarded? Such a sad waste of giving my virginity to an unworthy person. Mona's and I never spoke or saw each other ever. I felt bad because I had enjoyed her company every time that we had spoken. So that is the story of how I lost my virginity to the most unworthy person. Next time I'll tell you about other boys. Till then, stay healthy, stay happy. Bye for now.